Well, from this beautiful scene here in Brixby Wood, not far away from Alford, these bluebells, and rather than just do a straightforward copy of the bluebell picture, rather nice to work out there. I may even manage yet, we'll see how time goes, and the weather's been a bit changeable. But this time I'm going to do another one in the wildlife series, and I'm going to include in it a fox in the background, two badgers in the middle foreground, and a couple of hares watching from the right hand side. All of these things I've seen around the area here. In fact, when I took this bit of video at the end, there was a hare running through the bluebells then. I went out at 4 o'clock in the morning with one of the cameras and did some recordings of the bird sound at dawn. Dawn chorus at the moment is absolutely beautiful around here, and of course the woodland dawn chorus is very different. And that's what I'm playing in the background doing this film here. Right, without much ado then, let's get on, and we're going to start with acrylics, use a little bit of the sponge techniques, then into brushes, and build it all up with brushes as it sinks into the dark. And then once I finish doing my basic layers, I'll finish with the oils to give the last brightness and vibrance of this picture. I'm using MDF here. I've got a piece, I have a very nice frame ready to fit this, and I've primed it with some deep blue and a little black acrylic. So I've got the smooth side of the board here, and used some pastel pencil just to draw the areas on. Then down below and ready to paint with, I have my usual Stay Wet homemade Stay Wet palette and a mixing palette, plus my brushes, and also you'll notice up here a couple of sponge rollers that I want to start off with. Very handy little things, getting quite cheap off eBay. And then down to my brushes, my mixture of filberts and rounds, and a couple of sponges as well, because I may well need those as well. Amongst that I've got my rake brush and a fan if I need them. So everything I'm going to need for that painting here. First of all, I'm going to mix up this background colour here. I want to be painting this area, rather than mottled, a nice stripy effect. So we'll start by adding some of our darker background colours. I'll take a larger brush, and just a dab of water into there. And I want just a small amount of white, because even though I'm going to go darker, I need a bit of body colour in this. Now some Prussian blue. I'm going to need to put some more colour out shortly, I can see that. That's going to make it nice and dark. Into that Prussian blue, a little bit of yellow ochre. That'll give me a mid-grey. Now we'll just test that colour out on here. We come right down to the fox here. It gives me a rather nice mid-grey colour. And I'm going to let some of the dark show through the background here with that colour. So we're not going to use the roller quite yet. Letting the dark show through in places, going right down around the fox, and letting some of the darks glow through here, because I want to get these effects of the background light right down there to Mr. Badger. Pick some more paint up. Prussian blue, a bit of white, a bit of yellow ochre. Give me this. Just scumbling it in, as I say, some dry brush work there. I'm going to put the lights in shortly. I just want to work in these base colours first. And there, now I'm going to change my colours. I'm going to make up a green now, for the sponge rollers, and take some of that, just wet my roller, get it going, because it's a brand new roller, so this one's wetting a little bit just to get it going. And then we'll get some paint into that, need plenty of it. I take a little bit more, add it into that Prussian. I want a mid-green at the moment here. And we'll just start to roll this in a textural way across the surface. Oh, another fun look. Different directions, just giving yourself the effect of a light background. Doesn't matter if it comes over Mr. Fox a bit, because we're going to bring the fox out again later. Mix a bit more paint. Plenty of it. Get a roller in there again, and we'll start to work up some of these yellows in the background. We've got the field going on behind there, we've got these leaves coming down and through behind here. We're going to have some light there in just a moment. Bring that up. What I'm going to do now is mix that paint and mix it a little bit stronger. Take some more yellow into that. There we go. A little more water, so I've got plenty on my sponge. And now I want to really start working down around Mr. Badger here, Brock. As I say, we're going to just cover up the basic textures at first here. We can twist and swirl with the roller a bit as well. Foxy right up between his legs here. So now I'm going to make a much lighter colour for the sky going on behind here. So once again we'll take a bit of white, mix it in, fairly wet this time. A little touch of light blue into there, and a wee touch of pink. We'll see why in a moment. So we're getting a slightly pinker mix. So a wee bit of pink and a little bit of blue. There we are. Giving us that nice light blue. Perhaps a little bit of that cerulean will be nice in there. That's it, that's a much nicer colour. Blue-grey. Take my small roller again. And let's start to look at the light shining through between the trees behind here. So we're coming down here. We're going to get a slightly speckled effect. this light coming through. Very, very lovely effects we can get with paint like this, which will give us texture as well as atmosphere and light. These slightly straight edges of the trees in between as well. So we can use the roller edge to leave some lines here. Just tickling it on with the rollers. Great fun. And we'll come down to brushwork at the end of this in a moment. Right, that's got our sky going in the background there. What I want to do is add some yellow to that same colour. Very nice bright yellow. And a little touch of blue into that to take it down a fraction into the green. Take a bit of cerulean. There we go. Lovely light green. And again, I'll just put the roller through it. Don't need to clean the roller for this one. We'll just start to look at some of the lighter colours of the leaves shining through behind here. And these effects of background. Mr. Badger and so on down there. All these little bits of light catching. Many ways we can do this, but this is obviously, you can see, a very effective way. We've got the spring light, early morning, shining through here. Now much more yellow. I'm going to do slightly deeper yellow now. I'm going to take it down to some chrome yellow, a bit more still. I want a really chrome yellow green, because I want to start to get the sunlight actually coming through down here now. There we go. I want these little bits of stronger sunlight coming down through. And again, so we shall use the brush later to make even finer marks, but at the moment just feeling our way. I'm going to put some darks over there later with my brush and bring that back a little bit, that area, because we've lost the dark trees there a bit, but that doesn't matter at this stage because I'm going to bring it back later. And hear a cuckoo in the background right now. There we go, that's used our roller for the background. Now we can start on the brushwork. It's time to start using a brush now, and I'm going to go to a medium velvet here and look at the sky again and just mix up a little more of the sky colour. Quite light. We're using a heavy body white here because the acrylics can be so thin. I'm going to use a little bit of cerulean. Very light, and a little bit of that pink again. And we'll just look at the way those lights are coming through the trees here. Especially down around this area where it's we can start to get slightly more straighter, starker lines in places of the sky coming through. And we know we're playing smooth against rough and warm against cool as we do this. Lighten the whole thing up into here. Lemon yellow, a little bit of that. It's amazing how much colour there is in the sky. Very often we don't realise it. Photographs tend to bleach things out, and we are working for photographs here. But you know, you and I, we have the opportunity to make things much brighter. So we're going to make the more textural areas stand out even more. Same over here, a little bit more light coming through over here in places. And you can see how we're playing these three areas: warm and cool, rough and smooth, light and dark off. Right, let that dry. Come back and look at some of these darker colours. I'm going to go back to my Prussian blue. and mix that with a little bit of burnt umber. That will give me a beautiful dark back here. I can start to paint some of these very, very dark trees. Feel the way that these things overlap each other, come breaking down through here. I'm going to build all of this up with these acrylics first, using the stronger colour of the oils at the very end. One thing coming into another, and the textures as well. And I'm going to add some more cools in a moment into this. But for the moment, let's just keep with this colour. Just going amongst it more. Almost using pure Prussian blue at the moment as I come back into these cooler colours, the shadows. And how I'm now using the brush strokes against the sponge texturing, which is much finer in the background. But it is about the joy of the time of year as well, isn't it? All these bursting blossoms coming out and the freshness of spring, the freshness of this light and the greens, which is what's so lovely. Lots and lots of little strokes which will make it look as if we've spent hours and hours and hours, but really it's just special and quick effects, isn't it? Right. Got the background in. Now we need to start looking at this area down the bottom. Down there, we'll use a bigger brush. Need our darks, but we've got to start actually drawing in some of these lovely colours. Change brushes to a nice big velvet. This one will do. Start to look at the darker leaves of the actions. I'm only making an impression of, again, as I tend to be an impressionist, of this scene. I'm not painting it exactly at the moment. I'm going to start painting it more exactly as I go along. We start loose, we can finish tight. We can't start tight and finish loose very easily. We could have painted some salient points in, I suppose, and then come back, but that's not what we're doing this time. We're just going to work in all of these salient, all of these impressions of the leaves in the background. And that's why I gradually strengthen all of these colours, so we'll start to get a more three-dimensional effect. Keep building it up and building it up this way until I'm happy I've got a basic grounding, which I just about have now. I'll leave it at that for the moment just to dry off. And I want to do a bit of work on my animals. I'm going to build animals up next and then go back into the details again. Basic grounding done. Let's work in on Mr. Foxy and try and get his complete as we can. Let's have a little look at painting this fox. We'll just paint in some of the background colours on it. Again, we'll see how far we'll get with the detail. I'm going to move over to a small velvet now. And again we'll build up the background colours over the dark, just carefully. Start with a yellow ochre. So I may come over this with oils again later. I just want to start to feel the right colours at present. Comes up, its ears there. One thing with acrylics is because they dry so quickly, you've got to watch yourself on blending. And I wasn't able to blend then because it was just so quick drying before I could actually get this part complete. Around his ear there, down his chops here, cheeks, jowls, round into his forehead, across there. But at the moment I just want to build up where he is. we are, we've just about finished the animals, much I want to do at the moment anyway, and it's now time to carry on with the background grasses. And then once I've built all of those up, we'll look at doing the oils with the stronger colours and the final details. and of course the final leaves and then the bluebells. So for the moment I want to be carrying on. I've got the animals in. I want to be carrying on with all of these crisscross grasses. But to do that I'm going to use my medium filbert again, because I can use it as a pointed end as well as a fine. And we'll start mixing up some of these lovely greens again. Greens and blue greens. A little touch of white in, because the thing is it needs body. We've got to give these paints, because they're a bit thin, we've got to give them some body, so I'm going to put a bit of white into that, and then we'll start flicking in these colours again. It's a bit of work, but it's worth it, because, as I say, it's time consuming, but it's not that complicated to do. This tangled mass of grasses and stems that are coming up. So I'm going to start adding some yellow-green to it now. Build up some of these highlights coming through the background here. Now we add some leopard yellow, a little white to it, because we're starting to bring up these lighter colours that we put in first of all, like this one up here, where I'm going to start really linking these together now. We start to link this texture with the texture that we made with the sponges earlier. We don't just do special effects on their own, we have to work into those special effects to make them part of the work of art, rather than just relying on their own. Light against dark, warm against cool, rough against smooth. So here I'm painting around the hare's ears here to bring out these darks of the hare's ears against the light in the background. A bit more of that with the white, because we need so much lighter yellow leaves up here. Come down as well. We don't know how much oil we're going to need. We'll see how well these acrylics work first, because it may be that we don't need too much of the oils if the acrylics work. Right, now it's time to start using some of the cooler greens to paint in these background effects. We've gone down to a smaller, more pointy brush now, as you can see. It's still sinking back, so if I want to keep this effect, then I stay with these acrylics. But if I wanted to go much stronger and more vibrant, then I will move to the oils, which I think I will do for the flowers whatever, but I'm not certain I shall use it on the background, because this is working quite well in many ways. Maybe even right through to light blues. I'm going to take some cerulean now and some white. I'm going to go into pinks and all sorts in a moment. We're not just staying with this light green. We've got all sorts of colours to find here. Bearing in mind that the flowers are going to come at the very end, we don't paint them at this stage. Lighter colours in. I'm going to start to add the stronger greens, even in these acrylics, which are rather nice. The warmer greens in places, which will make the cooler seem cooler still. So let's start getting in these lovely, bright, leaf greens, if you like, sunlight catching them. Let's see if we can get some of these much stronger deep greens going on. And once you put them in, everything else starts to change, of course, because the values change, and so we've got to start flicking this colour in all over the place and find out where it is. And the deep blue greens that are going on in the shadows down here as well, very important. And yet I mustn't go too blue because I've still got the bluebells to put in. And even very, very light warm colours. Let's just take a bit of white and cadmium orange. Just see what that does. White and cadmium orange. Very, very light here. See if we can catch the tops of some of these leaves a little bit lighter here. That shines out. Look how that now shines out. Surprising how much colour there is reflecting in leaves. It isn't just greens. These little bits of pink are all going to help the blue as well later in the flowers. Now we need to get the light blues a little bit more, so I'm going to take some cerulean and white and just put it on these leaves next to these pinks to really bring out the cools a bit more and make the green seem a little greener. I'll just bring these light blues over just a bit more on here. You see the difference that makes, just makes it sparkle a bit as it shines down from the sky onto here. It's just bringing out the cools that little bit more, and they're able then to play against these pinks that are on the leaves and give it that more vibrance. And we're not far off, I think, being able to actually start our oils and be doing the very bright colours soon. Just want to go back with my darks a little bit now. I'll just make up a very dark, take my Prussian blue again, and a little bit of the brown. And something as small as this can make a lot of difference actually. And there are some slightly warmer colours amongst it too, so I'm going to now make some very light brown into cadmium orange. Put a little bit of cadmium orange in fact, first of all. A little touch of burnt umber, a wee bit of white, just to give it some body colour. And let's start to just find some of these lovely little bits of orange that are in here amongst the it's just surprising these warm colours, they are here. There's a bit of pink even, so we'll take a bit of magenta. Might seem a bit ridiculous to you, but here we go. It's quite surprising what warm colours we have in here. So to hit the cooler greens a bit more in the shadows, I tend to take some ultramarine. To find our dark again that we made with the Prussian blue and the brown. And let's see just how dark we can go. We'll make it a bit warmer. And we'll try and bring the stem just down through here. Looks a bit darker. Just a bit more warmth into it. Because now I want to bring these grasses up and through here to link in a bit more, you see. And I can do that by using these darker stems. Finally, we're going to go back to the tips of these to see if we can get that bit of sunlight that a little bit stronger on them. And if this doesn't work well enough, then I'm going to go back to my oils and put the stronger colours in with oils later. We're going to move on to the oils now. I'm using the same filbert brushes but a different set. I like to keep them, for just one use only. Medium. I like to use these nice big tubes of oil paint. In this case I'm using the Dale Rowney Georgian, but the Winsor Newton's nice as well. I only use the students' quality oils, they're fine for me. And I'm going to put out several different blues and a magenta or a rose, because I'm only going to now be painting the blues of the bluebells and maybe one or two little bits of highlights after that. We'll see how it goes. Ruby red's rather a lovely one. We'll have a little bit of that out just in case I need it for those red background flowers with the magenta. Cerulean blue definitely. Don't think I'm going to need turquoise, but I will put just a little bit out just in case. In a minute. And also a little bit of this emerald green as well, because I might need to just put a few more greens back in at the end. You see, we can paint the oils over the acrylics, but we can't do it the other way around. We shouldn't paint acrylics over. Cobalt blue, a definite. Those lovely colours. I'll paint them all nice and thick in a minute. Trowel these on and build these bluebells up from darks to lights. And they're all red. I suppose we'll need that, but we'll have it there ready in case. I still want my rose in the book. Here we are, processed magenta. This is the colour I might need for those red flowers. Look at that. A bit bright, but that's what we're going to need. So I should have enough colours there now to do these bluebells. I just want to find my turquoise just in case I need a little bit more cool. I shouldn't do, but just in case. Right, I've got some white spirit in the jar here and a cloth to wipe on. And I'm talking to myself and the cameras aren't even on. Oh, so they are. And here we go, this is the fun bit. Take a little velvet, nylon, long handle, and I want to work on these darker areas and the purple areas in the background. First of all, we'll look at the purple. Take a bit of that and add it on my palette. Tiny bit of terps just to get things going. This lovely violet. And that's going to want some white with it to make it into a body colour. I want to paint it nice and thickly. And do some more white as well. Right, let's see how this colour goes in the background. It's right up round there, yes. It's a lovely violet colour. We've got some going into the colour of the badges already, so it will link. And just using the brush blade on, edge on, I just want to drop these in here. I'm going to bring those reds a bit higher in a minute. Right through there. I'll make these lighter in just a moment. Come right up through behind the fox, Mr. Fox. And when we've got the colour on the brush, if it's just gleaming in the background elsewhere, we just need to show it, just link it with the background a bit more, just so that it's not a wall of the colour. So putting on this light violet, which comes right down. As we come down, we make the strokes a bit bigger. They get closer together as well when there's a lot more of the bluebells showing. Right down to the leaves here. So we're doing these mid and lighter tones first, behind Mr. Badger, and the bluebells get quite big. So we're going to start making some quite large strokes here. Nice big chunks of bluebell coming down, hanging. So bluebells aren't necessarily just blue. We've said that about flesh, we've said that about grass. They aren't just the colour that you think, just one colour you think they are. They're going to be several colours. Right, work on down. Disappear there for a bit. Then they come in between here, between these leaves. Nice big chunks of paint. Let's really build some more up again, get some more colour on my brush. Just a little touch of, that's all, just a little touch of terps just to move it slightly. It's not going to dry on my brush, so I'm alright there. Right, then we can start to paint these bluebells in just as dabs. So I remember that story I think I told you before in my films about inventing a new way of painting, as in the Impressionists were called the Impressionists because somebody said they created mere impressions. Somebody once said about Monet, he's just an eye, but what an eye. Well, yes, eye. He was indeed. So the Impressionists, and if I'm just daubing, if I'm just making dabs of colour, as an Impressionist in a way, then I'm actually painting with not only colour but with light, because what I'm doing here is actually creating an effect of light and pattern and mood and atmosphere. Right, ready for our first blues. Now we're going to make it a little bit lighter first. Let me just go back to that and add some more white to it. And just go and a little touch of the red, a little touch of the red, white again. Let's just come back up here, make it a bit warmer up here. Yeah, so a bit pinker, a bit more of the red again, magenta. A bit more white, make it lighter. Let's try that again. There we go. Because they're a lot pinker up at the top here. This effect of light, of the morning light shining through here as these animals. Beautiful colours. Really look for your colours. We don't want it to be twee. I mean, we're doing a very twee and chocolate boxy theme. It doesn't have to come out that way. We can make it, take that one step further by really looking at the colours and making it a painting rather than just an illustration or a calendar or a chocolate box. I want to really enjoy these colours and take them that one stage further. About to start on the blues, and I'm going to go to my cobalt blue first of all, just use it neat, see how that looks, strong and fresh, just touches of colour. All we're doing is putting the right colours in the right shapes, relevant one to another, building these blues, actually building them up almost three-dimensionally with this paint. That one's a bit bright there, we'll take it back a bit. We can rub it back because it's on the board, so I can just lift it off if I want, or use a cloth even. And now we've got to look at the next blue down, which is our ultramarine. I'm going to go straight into that. Let's look at how lovely and dark that can be in here. Much deeper blue, stronger blue. It'll make that cobalt seem much lighter, which is what we're after. I'm going to go across to my cerulean blue and just add a little of that cool blue in here and there. Might have to add some white to it yet, we'll just see, but it will help to show some of the warmer colours against the other blues. Just look at the difference that makes. So 3 very different blues. My main blues in the palette: cerulean, ultramarine and cobalt. We're down to our final coats, and I'm just going down now to Prussian blue, which is the darkest of my blues, almost the blackest one I mixed. I just want to pick up in some of the very dark areas of these here, for instance. We'll pick that out with the Prussian, which is much darker than its counterpart in acrylics, so it's quite very useful in fact. Well, there we are then, got that one finished. I don't want to go into much more detail. We could touch it up and make it more and more realistic if we wanted to, more and more photographic, but it is a painting after all, and I've enjoyed doing it. I think it'll do for this one in the series. This time I'm going to use a composite of photographs, in other words photographs put together. A sky from Thedlethorpe, the marshes from Saltfleet at high water, and these egrets that I've taken at various times on the marshes at high water. I'm painting onto MDF, and I've primed it with a coating of acrylic, a mixture of deep brown and black. Then I've done the preliminary drawing using white watercolour pencil. Very handy because I can wipe off any mistakes I've made and just work over again. In this painting I shall start with the sky, and we're going to start, as I usually do, at the horizon. That is, in this case, at the horizon just where the clouds meet colour. It's best to start with your white and gradually tint the other colours into it. If you do it the other way around, you find you're adding more and more white to get it light enough, and you end up with a gallon of paint. As I work upwards, I shall, as usual, make the colours range from cooler to warmer. I start with a mixture of white and a little lemon yellow, some cerulean blue and a little bit of emerald green. Then working upwards we have more cerulean, gradually working into cobalt. In some cases I would then work into ultramarine and a little purple, but in this case it wasn't required. The clouds are then made by using the usual greys, mixing blue with browns. There are so many permutations to the greys. In this case burnt umber and ultramarine blue, but equally burnt sienna is good, and it can use the cerulean with the burnt sienna as well. Here I've also added a little bit of purple to the grey. By doing this we have wonderful control over our cool and warm greys. Sometime try mixing viridian green with alizarin crimson and white. This will also give you a beautiful grey. Just give it some white and just show you, just to indicate to me where colours are going to be going. Working up these blues into each other a bit here. Just blending, and we're going to work the clouds over this shortly. Down here we've got quite a light yellowy cream again. So let's take our lemon and a bit of white. And the tiniest touch of a bit of orange into that. And we'll just bring that colour, that rather nice golden colour again down here. Put it over there already. Down below that bird. Oh, that's a bit darker against the bird. So, right, now we can start on the actual clouds. We want to work up the mid-tones. We want to work up the mid-tones first of these purple greys, and then we'll come in with the lights and work some over the top as well. Finishing up with the very lightest at the end. Not going to do the water yet, go back on that. Let's look at these greys. So after using a little bit of purple again there, see that. Going to mix some of this purple in with my blue that I've already done. Give me a bit more consistency. A little bit of yellow ochre into that, give it a more golden colour. Let's just try that out. See, the thing is that I'm still dealing with this white canvas, and all the while I've got that there, it's rather throwing me out, but it goes very dark down here. I'll just get this fluffed up here to feed with these clouds. I'll darken them a bit more yet in a minute. I'm mixing ultramarine, white, a little bit of burnt sienna to give me this grey. A wee touch of the purple in it, but not much. I want to try and gradually build up these dark fluffy clouds. And you see how, although this is the same photograph of the sky I was using, it's coming out quite differently. We don't need black, we're using the blue and the browns to make our tertiary colour of the grey. I'll start to work up our slightly lighter, warmer greys. So I'm using white, a little touch of cerulean and a wee touch of alizarin crimson now, just to start to feel these warmer greys amongst here, subtly, to gradually get this feeling of reflected warm light coming up into the sky. So with these slightly pinky tinges, we're just starting to hint at that. Now, with the use of a little cadmium yellow and some rose and white, a little touch of the grey, we'd already mixed the purple grey. I'm starting to feel some of the pinker colours coming in around the clouds. don't want to make it too strong. It's not a very bright pink yet. It's just subtle colours coming up through here. And right through up into the sky here as well, just reflecting a little bit on these clouds. Hopefully you see now how the sky can be built up in layers, working from one tone to another and warms and cools between each other as well. Got to go lighter still now with my pinks. So I'm taking lemon yellow and rose and white, and I'm going to go lighter with those pinks still before I come to my creams. Little bits of light shining here. And gradually build up this. Although it's still against the white down here, this will make much more sense once I've got rid of all that white. I'm going to add a little bit of cadmium red to the pink now to make it warmer. And you see I'm painting quite thickly, I'm painting quite in pasto now. I'm going to start putting in some cadmium orange into these to really go for some warmth amongst them now. These are colours that I wasn't using in the last painting, so I'm taking it maybe a stage further here, getting little bits of reflected light here and there as well on the clouds. To make the opposites in the colour circle, these reds and oranges are going to make the greens and turquoises stand out a lot more. Finally, there's a lot of work to do that. Got to make a much lighter colour for the fluffiness of the clouds. Very light fluffy areas. I'm going to take a smaller filbert now and mix up some quite warm but very light cream. So a little bit of the chrome yellow, the white, and just see if we can now find these lovely bits of cloud in here. And I may need a bit more of the chrome yellow in that because it's quite orangey, very light down here. Lovely slab of light, sunlight coming through the cloud there, down through here. As I say, we won't really see the difference in this until I get rid of the rest of the white. But then hopefully these colours will sing out and do what they're meant to be doing. This yellow now needs quietening down a bit down here. Little bits of sky showing through in places that are important. So for the moment, there we have it. We'll just leave that sky at that and move on to the birds. Up here we've got a heron. I want to make it look as if it's in movement. I'm going to go to my smaller brush now and make that darker colour, which is the Prussian blue and brown. And in this case the brown is the burnt sienna. And I've got to paint fairly carefully again because we want this beak of the bird just coming out here. Not too big. Comes into the wing. Dragging back there. Now if I take my blue and cut in around that now to get his shape right. Let me try and get the feeling of this bird winging its way across the sky there. Now we want to focus in on the mallards. We'll do this main one first. Now with the mallard, we've got lovely greens and warms to deal with, and this lovely bright red layer. I think I have to start with the green here, and I'm going to start with a very, very light green first of all. This green here, which I shall start with as a yellow green. In other words, it's like emerald mixed with chrome. It's going to be a very, very light green indeed. So I shall take this yellow green, add a little bit more lemon yellow to it still, and let's just try that colour out, shall we? Yes, that's not far out. It's a nice light green that I want to just give an undercoating to on the head here to get the brightness shining at first, and then we'll gradually, almost like a watercolour, we'll gradually work it up. Small brush at first, right down the neck with that gleaming. Now I want to go to a slightly stronger yellow green. But you see, the effect of the head here is not just one colour. It's several colours put together. I need now some emerald green, which is a much bluer, more turquoisey green to shine up and through here. Right down there. That gives us the green we want. Now I've got to come on to the much darker colours. I'm going to take some viridian green, come back down the edge here. Very acidic, strong green. I'm going to go over that in a moment with a much, much darker, almost Prussian. This is just to get my underpainting and find the shape and let these colours gleam through, because as I was saying just now, it isn't just one colour sometimes that will give the effect. You have to have one colour next to another colour to get an impressionist, if you like, glowing. You can just begin to see the lovely glowing colours of this mallard coming. It would be lost if we didn't do this technique. Right, darker still. Now I'm going down to my Prussian and a little touch of the brown, and we'll really start to get these blues, darker colours, which will make this suddenly shine and glimmer, I hope. There his eye comes. So we're now working down with this darker mixture of Prussian, and I'm going to put a little bit of cobalt back into there in a moment. To gradually tone in, blend in these darker colours. Little tiny strokes just to get the feeling of these feathers gleaming in the evening light. Now, a bit of pure ultramarine, and we'll just come around here, putting in some deeper blue. That needs to be lifted just a little bit. I need to go back in with the cerulean and green there. I'm going to take some cobalt blue now, try and work that down inside here a bit. Really do want to try and get this shininess of the duck. And we've just about got that shiny feeling that we're after now. Right, let's look at the beak. So I'm going to start again with something quite light. I'm going to start with cadmium orange and a little bit of white, just to give it some body colour. Come down from there. I'm going to have to cut into this a bit because the beak is not quite looking as I would like. Okay, now pure cadmium orange, and see if we can find that colour in there a bit more. That's better. And then slightly more red on top of that. And while I've got that colour on my brush, let's just look at these legs here. And put in that lighter orange first. Paint those in completely with that. We can come back in with the red afterwards over that to give it the really bright orangey red that we want to get from the feeling of the mallard's legs. Like that. Now very, very carefully with the point of the brush, and we can make the round point into a blade, remember. I want to take some of that dark that we made earlier with the deep blue and a little touch of brown. Make the brush into a blade, and very, very carefully we have to come in underneath this bird's beak here to give the dark bit there. And the nostril just up here. Now, I need to come back to the sky just a bit, because that needs cutting into the beak just a bit up here now. It was just a little layer of white left there which we don't want. Down to the wing, to light brown there first. So let's take some of our burnt sienna, a little touch of burnt umber and a tad of the white, and just give it a wash first. As we can use oil paints a bit like watercolours as well. I'll give it a thin coat just to get rid of the white canvas, which is not very nice, as I was saying, can't really work with that. Find the feather structure. I'll come back in with the dark over that in a minute, almost white at the edge. We'll bring that out in a moment by using some dark against it, and then just there it is in fact white. I was near damn it in this picture. But again, you won't really see that until I put the darks in around it. And while I've got white on my brush, let's look at this white collar, which we all know so well with on the mallard here. I'll put the other lights in later. Let's go back to the darks, and we need a deeper brown, the feather structure here at the wing edges. I'm using burnt umber with a little touch of Prussian in it. So we've got the feathers splaying out there as the bird hurtles up into the air. And lo and behold, the bird starts to appear. And gradually now building up to the very final little touches of white and fluff going in, just to finish off these white feathers. And laying them over the top means that I can just be a little bit sharper and thicker with my paint to give that feather effect. Hopefully that's what we've got. I hope that you agree. We've got the movement there. So that's that mallard done. Now we'll move to the two that are taking off. Now these two that are flying off. Photograph is rather distant. I've tried to work from all my own photographs, and these two were taking off quite a way away, but they're rather nice compositions, so let's see what we can do with them. First of all, I want to use quite a light colour, so I'm going to use my cream with a little more white into it, just to make the whole bird first of all. And again, I'm going to get this feeling of movement. On the camera it's a bit blurry because of the movement at that speed and that camera shutter speed. While I've got the colour on my brush, then I need to do similar on the other bird. And I can start working into this with the darker colours again. And down there for the beak. We're using blue rather than green at the moment. Find these bits of blue and darker colour coming down the wing. Go to a slightly deeper blue with a mixture of the ultramarine and a little bit of Prussian just coming down into the tail there. Swan's wings. So we're using burnt umber now amongst the burnt sienna to be slightly more stronger in the brown, a bit richer. You can see the effect it's having now. Now a little bit of the orange and cadmium red. We'll just see if we can find these duck's legs a bit here. Perhaps in the bird itself, parts of it just there. Just a few marks to give the impression of these colours. Right, so we come down to the water. We've done this bit now, it's this bit to do. We'll put that in afterwards, but get these lines of light colour in first. I think we'll make just one overall colour and then gradually start to make our lighter blues. Let's start off with a fairly purpley blue. How light is it? Take a little bit of purple, a little bit of ultramarine, just test it. Yeah, that's not far off for a part of it there. So a little bit more purple, a little bit more yellow ochre to give me slightly more golden yellow colour down here. That light changes across the water. At the moment I'm just painting horizontal strokes, but I will want to come back into this with more vertical to get the feeling of more depth in a minute. Alright, so now we'll just start to blend that a bit downwards. I want to get the depth of the water first, the reflections first, and then we'll go for the surface afterwards. So don't paint surfaces, even though they're mirrored, flat all the way across. I might just get some of these areas of more purple first. So just plug it into the canvas. Let's get rid of that white canvas for the moment. You can't see wood for trees. Right. Now some cobalt blue and some white. Let's get the canvas down here. And we take that same colour, we go back up into there. And that's got rid of the base white. Now I can start to do a bit more of this business of feathering the reflections in. I can just move a bit of it out. Now down here it's a lot warmer, so I take a bit more of the cobalt and a little touch of ultramarine, and we'll start to a bit more blues going on. I'm going to actually add a little bit of Prussian to it with that cobalt and a wee touch of the purple just to warm it back a bit. And we'll drag that backwards and forwards through here using the tip of the brush to start to get the feeling of ripples going on. I may have to use a smaller brush for this in a minute, but just to get me started. Bluer shade back here amongst this as well. In here. Also that comes out this side. Now we can use our fingers as well with this, remember, to smooth things in, to blend, to get the softer effects. You're not stuck with just a brush, and there are various brushes for doing various jobs too. If I use my fingers, look at the soft effect I can get when I want to blend these horizontal marks in. Those very soft ripples, ever so gentle ripples, right through. There we go. Now, I should look at this background, so I'll take a smaller brush again, down to my small velvet. Brushes don't last that long doing this sort of job. And it wants to be a slight purple tint first of all, a distant mauvey purple, quite dark. So I'll take some Prussian blue and a little bit of mauve and just feel this far edge. Yeah, it's as dark as that, and we'll form these distant trees. Darker into those still. A bit more Prussian blue and a touch of brown. Just feel one or two of the dark areas in here. But it's still very distant, so we still want to keep it cool. Now we need the warmer band to get rid of that bit of white of marsh just coming in before that. So I'll take some yellow ochre, a little bit of burnt sienna, a touch of burnt umber. Now, whilst we've got that on the brush, there are areas of that colour that are coming into those trees as well. So we shall just tickle in the trees, little areas of the same colour to get this marsh coming into these sand dunes and trees in the background. I would say at the moment I've been going almost entirely along with horizontal marks, but we shall need to start to look from now on at doing a lot more vertical ones as well. I'm afraid it just does take time. There's no real fast way about doing this, because you can't just get a sponge and sponge bits on. We have to look at all these little marks and try and make sure that none of the marks I do are ever the same, that they're always slightly different. Instead of using the point of the brush, I'm using the pointed stick end of the brush to put in these very, very tiny dots. Whichever tool suits you for the job you need to do. All these little gulls gleaming in the background here in the sunlight. And again, we've got to the stage where it's just about there, not too much detail. Well, the picture we're going to do is this one, and I'm going to then reflect the birds down the bottom again. All I've done here is reflected that sky down, but I do want some more texturing of the grasses in there, so it'll be a composite between the two. Now I've got the background painted, I need to start painting in the geese in silhouette. So I only need two colours again to make my dark, the Prussian blue and the burnt sienna. On 2 or 3 of the birds there's a little bit of light reflecting, so I shall leave the canvas showing through, the underneath paint showing through, and just glaze over them a little bit afterward. There's no point in my showing you painting all of these, so I'll just show them in sequence a few at a time. And now you start to see what a different picture this actually is, and these birds in it. We've got the reflections in now, but I want to make them look like reflections. So I've got to come back in with a little bit of light colour just over the surface to try and make it look like reflections and not dark marks on it. So we'll just bring some of these lighter colours just through, rippling through here, both vertically and horizontally again, as we mentioned before. We got those, and we might need to come back a little bit more. I think this time on the foreground here I'm going to take a little bit of green and just indicate some of these leaves with a little bit more, tad more colour this time. Let's go in with a little bit darker in 1 or 2 of these reflections and just pick them up a little bit. Using burnt sienna, cerulean blue and a bit of white, I'm just building up the background colours, the underpainting to the deer, then I'll work in more detail over them later. Now we've got our deer formed, and we've just got to work these colours up. I want to be able to get rid of the white background as quickly as possible, form an effect of light, and then compare one colour to another, gradually building up from my misty backgrounds with the rollers to my more stronger trees and branches in the foreground with brushes. So here we have our standard set of acrylics I've been using before now, and I'll put these with a brush into the palette here and mix them up, and then use this nice little roller, and we'll make these effects for the background of the woodland. Now, I don't mind if I come over my idea just slightly here and there. Got to bring these colours up. That's it. And we'll gradually work up the slightly warmer tints of things. Right, now you want to start painting all these twigs and branches in the background, get the feeling of these trees in. So I'm going to carry on with a velvet. Start to make some of these greys, very similar greys to the deer in fact. I'm going to link the whole thing together. Just about got the light worked out, and that's oneness with this light that's going on. Right, now I'm going to move from the filbert down to a round. It's number 4, because I want to start painting in more of these branches. So again, back to our same colour of the burnt sienna and the blue. Remember that twigs always grow from thick to thin. They never grow thick, thin, or thin, thicker, unless you've got something wrong with the branch itself or the tree where there's a cancer cause, and this is where you get those wonderful things called burrs. And the burr is a cancerous growth that makes the tree knobbly in one area, and when it's sliced up there's a most wonderful grain and figuring inside, and that's what they use. And they make these lovely veneered tables and things, and you've got these beautiful swirling patterns in the grain in the wood. Here you get the feeling of the woodland. And we shall build up over this, as I say, build up in layers. I'm going to go a little bit darker. I've just added a little bit of black to it. I don't use black in much, as you know, but I just want to be a bit darker here amongst these trees. Now we're going to move on to painting oils over the acrylics, which will give us a much brighter, heavier mixture, much more vibrant. We're going to be using some sponge at first, and then I'll move on to my filbert brushes and texture and so on with those. I shall use the sponge for a little bit of that, and then come down to fine brushes. went on to build up all of these very light creams and light greens and very pale blues as well into this. That's coming in across here as well. Just so many beautiful colours. Need to go darker now, and I'm going to start adding some burnt sienna. Especially down here. Sunlight coming through those trees like water splashing from a waterfall through and across them. Keep working these colours up, even over the tree where it's necessary. Texturing up here. Now let's bring some more warms into it. We'll take some rose and start to add the much warmer rose colours into here, which will bring out the colours I've already got in the deer more. Just so many colours going on in here. You can drag the sponge as well as push it to get these effects. I'm going to go even darker now. So I can take some burnt umber, a little touch of my ultramarine blue, and let's start to make some of these really dark textures down here. It really is a lot darker down here because we've got all these light leaves to put in here as well. I think it's time to start on our greens now. I'm going to come back into this with brush later. There's a lot of work in making the colours and building this sort of thing up. Although it seems a very complicated painting, and in some ways it is, we're making it easier by using these techniques of building up layers. And it comes down to almost pure blues at times amongst these greens. This is cobalt blue I'm putting on now. Some of these darks brought back out when I put lighter colours actually in here because the sky needs to glow through again and I've lost it a bit, so I'm going to have to put some much lighter colours back in shortly, and that will make these leaves seem darker. Right, let's start to go towards the lighter green of the leaves now. You've got some wonderful colours going on in those. Bit of lemon yellow with the emerald now to really get some bright sunlight. Just flicking them on, nice clean colour. Trouble is, if you don't do it gently, the colour will lift from underneath and spoil it. Got to work up these umbrellas, these parasols, these skirts of leaves coming around here. It's beautiful to be able to use these pure colours now at this stage as well. Really good fun. I'll take some viridian and white, make a very, very light green, very acidic green, amongst which I'm going to put some cerulean in a minute. Look how light that is. Very, very cool green to make the warm green seem warmer. Little strokes of leaves, almost every leaf being painted in, but only an impression of them. We aren't trying to be exact, of course. Start to get a three-dimensional effect with the strengths of warm and cool greens almost standing out off the canvas, which is what we're after. Let's take some pure cerulean. Just see if we've got any cooler blues up and around this area. I think we might have, yeah, coming through. Now, I want to go back in with some of those lights in the sky that I talked about earlier. A really clean brush, and we'll make up a very, very light purple, ever such a light, little touch of pink into it, and a little touch of blue. And we'll just see about the light shining through behind these trees here. Don't want it too warm. And of course it's reflecting over some of these wet leaves. Right, I'm deliberately going to mix that cadmium orange and white now to really go for something a little lighter up there. Get the effect of these lights shining through. So several very different paintings I've done for you in mood and atmosphere, with the pheasants and the snow and the And this is one of the beauties of oil paint, isn't it? The fact that we can put this in pasto, this beautiful pasto colouring in here, and play with it. It's such a lovely texture. Up until now I've been putting mediums and lights, and I'm going to work through to the darks, and I'm going to go to a little bit lighter still and really put in some very, very light colours of the sunlight gleaming through behind here. So this is lemon yellow and a little bit of white to give a cream, using the stippling of the brush, because I want to get this feeling of beautiful sunlight reflecting down through autumn leaves. So it's becoming quite a high-keyed painting now, isn't it? High key meaning very light and light in tone. And I suspect that some of them might just be catching highlights on the grasses as well. As the sunlight comes through, it'll probably be just catching the edge of these grasses. So let's just try and flick in, even with a bigger brush. I want some much stronger oranges into the foreground here. So I'm going to mix up some chrome yellow and a little bit of cadmium orange. And let's really start to plonk in some very strong oranges here. Put a little bit of white with that as well, just to brighten it up a bit. See if we can find some of these much stronger colours in the foreground, which will make the other colours seem, in comparison, softer. Got that colour, the chances are it's going on elsewhere as well, so we've got it on our brush, we'll just move it around into other areas. And the whole thing becomes richer and stronger all the time. If we just tickle these colours on, we shouldn't be losing, we shouldn't be mixing them from below, they should be staying on the surface. Using a bit more colour on there as well to bring them out. Because we only use a limited palette before, remember, we just use burnt sienna and some cerulean and a little bit of ultramarine later. But we actually now want to start getting a bit more mauve into these. And that mauve is the opposite in the colour circle to the purple, to the yellows, so that's going to also help our colours stand out more. Just blending it over at the moment. See how these deer are now standing out more. So I'm going to have to work into them more yet, but just to get me going. To prove the point that colours can change things so dramatically. I'm putting a bit of pure ultramarine down here to bring the cools out more. The paint's getting very heavy, I'm getting very impasto in this particular painting. Some more blues amongst that, so I'm going to use pure ultramarine down there. Go down to a smaller brush. I really want to make up some much lighter colours. Start to feel these lights even more up there yet than I have done. Take a very, very light pink and see if I can get the sky to work with that, because it's just not quite happening for me. We are again this morning, and we're getting well on with our painting of the deer. And in fact, we're down to the final details now. I think I'll start this morning with a little bit of cerulean blue to my picture, because I want to just make the cools a little stronger here. Just put a little bit of this very light blue into these reflections of light from the sky. Just the odd leaf here and there to make it look as if we've got, I guess there, some sort of rhododendron bush going on there. Let's see if we can use that light on the antlers of the deer just a little bit, because I'm not showing as well as I'd like yet. I don't know if it's going to work or not. There we go, just a bit. Just on the tips of the antlers. I think we're almost there. A few little light bits elsewhere, but not a lot. And there we are, I think. That's all we need to do on this one, really. And you guys just don't know, and there was so much bad advice going about. It was also the time when, regrettably, education changed, and we had whole ecosystems of further education and people getting grants, and then suddenly that changed, and you had to start doing vocational courses and things, and nobody wants to do those, particularly at our age. You just want to go and enjoy ourselves. And we'll start bringing some of that glaze over. Let's get rid of that ultramarine going in here. I can see it. Let's start to cool down our sheep a little bit here as well. A bit of modelling on the sheep down the middle of his face there, perhaps. I'll drag that through now a bit. Certainly stronger down there. So we're starting to get the effect of light coming through. Start loose, gradually tighten up. I'm the one that's in control, and I'm the one that's can say when it stops, when it starts, and as this gradually dries, I can add more and more as a standard watercolour. I've got to go dark enough. I mustn't be tempted to paint it as a normal watercolour, because the pastel won't show. Although I can go darker with the pastel as well, it's not going to. Don't be afraid to experiment. If I show you this technique, later on, go and have a play with your pastels and just see what you can do with them. If it gets overworked, you can always work over with more pastel still. Okay, let's take our break then, shall we? And we'll come back into this in a minute with the pastels, and you'll be surprised that it'll suddenly bring it out. That'll be all right? Yeah. That's another problem. When I paint, I tend to paint like a sword fencer. Long brushes, and I reach out. Not the watercolour so much, but I paint from a distance because I'm painting broken colour most of the time. So therefore I need to be able to get back from the painting to see it. Here I'm working across and I can't see what I'm doing. This is why I'm using hot press paper now, is because I wanted a smoother surface paper. Normally I'd use a rough on a snow scene, but because of the sheep I didn't want that. I like to really look for colours and pull them out of it. We were just talking, one of the gentlemen just now was saying to me about skies. When you're taking photographs, you tend to find that the sky will either be too bright and then it'll bleach out, which is the usual one, and you see the landscape, or you focus on the sky and it's all right, and then the landscape's too dark. So it's usually wise to try and take 2 photographs every time you take a shot if you're going to paint from it, because you want to focus the light meter on the sky and get a good sky, and then go down and get the land as well, and perhaps take one of both. When I'm teaching, I usually find that I'm dealing with three problems. The first one is that they were told at primary school they were no good, and it stays with you forever. The next one is you've got an older brother or sister who's better than you. And the third one, that's the most difficult for me as a teacher, is you've got an idea about what good art is. And it may be that that's not you naturally. So you might want to paint photorealism, and you might be naturally an impressionist or the other way around. It isn't for me as a teacher to change you. It is for me to try with experience and help you, guide out of you who you naturally are and will really enjoy. But anybody who comes to me and wants to paint a certain way, I'll help them do it. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't ask people to paint like me. I'm just showing you ways here. This isn't how to paint. This is just other ways of painting. This is just to help you enjoy. I paint in all sorts of different ways. You see what I mean about the watercolour and the lights and darks now, that you can play backwards and forwards, and now the washes that I did, the stronger they were, the more my pastel would show. Now, if I had a rough paper, you could imagine the texture I'd be getting with the snow now. Yeah? So the watercolour was only a foundation. It was only to get rid of a paper, which is what I do when I'm doing the acrylic ink ones at Cardinals. It just loses the... Is it looking reasonable back there? And it's sort of starting to work? Yeah. You get the idea, good. I hope that, when I get so involved with it, I hope you see I'm enjoying doing this, because there's absolutely no point in painting if you're not going to enjoy it. Don't struggle too much. If I'm doing a demo, I'm always exploring. I hate to do the same thing over and over again. I always try to differ what I do slightly every time I do it, because otherwise I'd get bored. Dots and dashes. Feel the marks you're making. You're looking at a surface, and it goes through your eyes, through the brain, out to the fingertips. So your fingertips should be feeling the surface that you're touching. It doesn't matter how good a drawing you do. If you draw a tram line around an object, it'll be flat. The edge of what you're drawing must be about the edge of the object you're drawing. So if it's a very broken old rusty tin can, it's got to be a broken line. If it's a smooth line gently going around a glass, it's a smooth line. And that will give you form even before you start shading. There's a little bit the same here. I'm not copying the marks exactly. I'm making them about what's going on here. And if I wanted to be exact, I could be. Of course, you know I could be. But that's not what I'm aiming to do. I just want you to get the atmosphere and the feeling of this thing. Yeah, you don't ask many questions this group, do you? Spellbound what I'm doing. I'm just going to go back a little bit and see what I've got there. Stay. Because I can't see from so close up. Yes, it needs... the darks need to be quite a bit darker in places to really bring this out. But the idea tonight, as I say, is to give you the idea of how it works. You can see how this could work for you. And it's not just with this method. You can use this method just the same for doing landscapes and things, because you can put those lights back in. You could put in a lovely big sky with sides of pastels, you know, painted all in loose. So if you've got those old watercolours at home that haven't worked, then please don't be afraid to now have a go at them and go back on them. And I want this shimmering effect of light coming through. And by going so loosely, I can now tighten up more and more and more, as much as I wish to. I'm again one that's in control.
For your own paintings, do you prefer studio or on-site? I suppose it depends where it is.
It depends what you're doing as well, but I think you learn more and get more by painting from life. There's nothing like being out there on a wonderful day, and even on a bad day. One of the most fun times I had was in a thunderstorm on one of the islands of the Hebrides. Again, you'll see it on the film. But I'm doing a water and pastel, and it just came down like a deluge. The river came, and I was actually using, I didn't need any water, I was just using the brush pastels and the rain pouring down on me, getting absolutely drowned. And it worked. It was great fun, you know, you just enjoy. I was doing a big pastel there working. Now you can paint pastels onto an acrylic ground as well, so if you paint your watercolour paper with an acrylic ground, that gives you a nice surface to work on. But thinly, don't use acrylic too thickly or it'll resist the pastel. So a dark ground's lovely to work on a watercolour paper. 3 hours in the freezing wind in the Hebrides, yeah. But you feel you've achieved so much and you actually gain so much being there. working from photographs when I have to. So for figures, for the flower gardens, for things like that, big abstract, for things like that, it's fun. But it's such a different way of painting. And of course, if you're there with the sheep, if I was actually painting this with a sheep there, I'd be getting a lot more out of it now, I'm sure. But equally, I'm treating it as if I were there. And I suppose that's one advantage I've got, and I've said this quite often, is that because I have painted so much from life, when I'm doing something like this, I've got the resource in my mind to come back on, to know if I'm, to paint it like I would out there, with that same sort of liveliness. And
I think one of the problems for us poor amateurs is that the light changes.
That's why you've got to get it done so quickly.
And shadows are changing.
You've only got 2.5 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
But using this method, you've seen what I've done in half an hour or so. And the same with the oil painting way that I've shown you.
Yeah.
Block in the backgrounds, get rid of the white, or use a coloured ground on your canvas to start, get rid of the white stuff. Constable used a deep umber ground, or a sienna. And if you look at some of his studies, you'll see the branches aren't painted in, the light's painted in, and the branches are left behind. Very, very rapid way of working, you see. And umber's a lovely colour to work on, as is sienna. Ochre is too. So maybe try that for a landscape sometime. Fit in a brown and just leave your brown showing through and work it up that way. There's lots of rapid ways, and it's nice to paint light onto the dark as well. It's very nice to do that.
Do you ever finish any of your outdoor sketches back in the studio as well?
Yes. Now there are two I did last year. I did a triptych of the waltz, where I painted it in the studio first from photographs and worked it up, and it was very dull. So then I went out there with the oils and finished it out there. Equally the other way around, there's one I did out there from the same spot just as a single canvas, and then the light changed before I could get into half an hour into it, and I had no choice, so I had to go home and use the photographs and really push the colours, even on the computer, to get myself there. So it works both ways. Yeah, it's good fun. Yeah, no, don't be limited. Just as it, keep your mind open, really, and try different things out. Yeah, there's no one right way, is there? There's so many ways that things can be done. I don't know how much more further I want to go, because I can keep fiddling with it. I quite like it loose and lively like that. And it's personal taste, isn't it? You might prefer it.
So does that picture have to be fixed now for the...
I don't. If you want to fix them, why bother with expensive fixative? Hairspray is perfectly good. Now, British Airways and US Airways, when I went abroad once, they wouldn't let the oils on, they would the acrylics. They wouldn't let my fixative spray on, but they would ladies' hairspray. If you're travelling abroad, be careful about what you're taking. Ask the airlines beforehand, because you might get halfway with one lot of stuff and then the other airline will say you can't take it. If you mount something with a double mount, never have pastels on their front. If you want to carry them, put them between either newspaper or better still tracing paper for just storage. Providing you bash them well when you're finished and you never lay them on their front, they're always vertical on the back, you shouldn't have a problem of the stuff coming off. My problem is that I've got so many pieces mounted in cellophane, and the cellophane bashes against it and people, bash them about, and of course it gradually messes up a mount, and they're quite expensive because I use proper acid-free card. So I don't know, the actual answer to that is no, I don't spray mine ever. And if I use water with it, I don't need to anyway. So, but there's not that much. I mean, there's not a bit of pastel on the floor there.
No.
It's for you. I was going to joke about that tonight and say, please turn all your phones off. Always one. It's worse than a funeral.
Because I'm chauffeured, isn't it?
But what I'm giving you is the choice. I'm showing you how it can be done. And how tightly you want to paint is up to you.
If you'd done that picture only in pastel, would it look a lot different to what it is now?
Yes. It would have a softer... I'm being quite harsh with it. if I was doing this just as a pastel, because there's so many ways of painting the pastel. If this was the traditional pastel technique, yeah, the other thing to watch as well is no paper is colour fast. So those pastel papers, if you want to leave the colour showing through, that's unwise. If you want to have colour showing through, give your paper, which is why watercolour paper is quite useful, give your paper a coat of paint that will be colour fast, like acrylic. In your lifetime it might not happen, but we've even used these expensive pastels and we've done tests in sunlight, leaving a piece of paper across, and even after 5 or 6 weeks we find there's a difference in colour in those. The best watercolours still, so they don't like sunlight. So my suggestion is that if you want to do a traditional pastel and have the colour showing through and leaving the colour showing through, it's dodgy using the pastel papers and leaving those showing through. You're better to coat it. Now you can stretch pastel paper just the same as watercolour paper, remember. If you want a really flat surface, you can't use water paint on it in the same way as you can with watercolour paper, but you can stretch it at least if you want it really flat. So the effect would be different because I would block and blend. I block in all my colours first and blend them, and then I work the pastels over the top. Pastel works by being a very fine pigment like watercolour, and the pigment reflects light. So if I put a bit of colour on like that, and I smudge it, it's dead. If I then go over the top, look how bright that is. That's reflecting the light and it's pure. So I deaden my first coats by blending them, and then I'll work up my succeeding coats by either scumbling or putting it directly on as I'm doing now and leaving them alone. Because if you touch them or blend them, they'll die. And that's the same with fixative. Fixative will take the whole painting down, the lights by 2 tones, which is not really very, if you've got highlights, you've lost them, haven't you? So I'm not very keen on fixative, you've asked me. I once painting a sunrise at Bridlington Harbour, and it was very, very orange, really bright, and I couldn't have more orange, more cadmium, more... And I suddenly, well, you prat, Pete, what are you doing? Instead of putting all the warms on, put the cooler on. Use the opposites, rough against smooth, light against dark, warm against cool. So I started plonking in these cools, and suddenly the warms shot out at you. Make sure it's very often not the thing that you think is wrong in your painting that is wrong, it's something nearby. And you're busy trying to get this thing right, it won't go right, and it's not that, it's another colour there. If you wanted to paint a guy in a fluorescent jacket, you wouldn't paint fluorescent paint on. If you want to paint silver in a pot, you don't paint silver paint on. You paint the right colours one to another. If you want that fluorescent jacket, then you've got to put the opposites in the colour circle around it. So you're painting rape. I had somebody come to paint rape the other day. I said, I want a purple sky, please. What do you mean purple sky? I said, it's the opposite to the yellow. You see what happens. And we started to get purple in and around the landscape, and the rape just went pow, You've got to use this colour chemistry, as I've been doing here, even with the warm and the warm and cool blues. And I'm using warm and cool blues. In fact, I'm using a little bit of green now as well into this, just to make those blues seem even bluer. But I used a bit of green on a sheep, green sheep. I was painting green cows in New Zealand for the kids. And it was, when you're using acrylic inks, you've got to keep them wet, because once acrylic ink's dry, that's it, you can't move them. You can lift watercolour out, but acrylic inks won't. And this green cow I was doing with all the dark colours, and you have to have a diffuser to spray to keep it wet. And of course, like you said, I'm working on the vertical, and one spray too much is all it needs, and the cow just went down here, and just repaint it in afterwards. So, do you think you've learned a bit tonight? Some ideas?
Yeah.
As I say, you tell me what you want another time, whatever it is, for painting knife or rollers. I made great fun recently using rollers for backgrounds, like that pheasant one. It was painted by using roller at first, in a very soft background, and then sponging up, and then the brushes and progressively building up. Do you think I should add any more to it? What do you think?
Yeah.
Is that right? Is that about enough of me?
As good as it is.
Dark bits. Yeah, just a few little dark bits now, just to enhance that light against the dark. Down to the sheep here. This is what I mean about the fencing match. You've got to get back, and then you go back in again, and layering it up, playing the warms against the cools. And now just a few marks can totally change things. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. I think if you've had enough of me tonight. Now's your question time then, yeah? Well, we're going to have a go at this rather pleasant woodland scene that I've done a composite of now from the Dales, and 3 pheasants that I took when photographing up there. Rather seasonal pictures that we're going to do at the moment. And I'm going to use my acrylics to start off with, and also rollers, and then work into brushes as well. And these little rollers, which come quite cheaply, you can get in different sizes, be very handy for doing some of the background effects in acrylics. These lovely soft pastel shades we're going to have behind the trees. I'm going to use my normal acrylic set, filberts, nylon, and a little bit of sponge there in case I need it as well, you see. Well, I'm going to mix my colours first with a brush. In this case I want these lighter colours here, so I'm going to start with a quite light pink, so a bit of white, plenty of water. So I want fairly thin paint at the moment, fairly transparent. Little touch of my pink, a wee touch of yellow into that just to get things going. More white, a little more pink. That should do it nicely. And let's see what we can get with that. And we'll just start building up behind here. Can't see the colour much at the moment because of the white of the canvas. But it is coming in behind here. And I'll add a little light blue into that later. But at the moment, you can just see it going very thinly over the canvas, over the drawing, right through to here. So backgrounds at first, mix it more when I need it. Lovely soft background effects that I'm going to need. And I can still see my drawing through it, you see, this is the beauty. Remember that we can put then oils over acrylics, but we can't put the acrylics over the oils, or we shouldn't because it's liable to lift afterwards. I'm going to actually cover most of this with this light colour at first, and I'm going to gradually come into it then and blend the colours even with the sponge. This isn't for speed as much as it's for effect, because I do want to get some beautiful soft pastel shades and effects back here. Okay, now I'm going to gradually add blues to that, the broken colour, so we'll let that come all the way through there. I want to gradually get a bit stronger with these colours. A little bit more pink in there again, so get more and more subtle. Keep adding our colours, building it up to overlay almost in a broken colour technique. These colours one across each other here. Look at this beautiful soft background colour. Now I'll start to add my more golden warms. So I'll come in with some yellow ochre now. Gradually coming warm as it comes into the foreground. So these warms now just starting to show, which will push back those lovely soft colours I've done earlier. We can use ordinary sponges to get a lot of this texture. This is to get the much softer background effects before I start on my, which I'm going to be doing soon, slightly more textural sponge work. So I think I've just about got my background in there now. Just going to add a little more of the yellow. We've got these various textures of sponges that we can try and use to get the leaf textures as we come forward. But before I do that, I should put a few more highlights in and then paint in some of the branches in the background because these layers are coming over. Right, it's time to start working on the branches and twigs now, so I'm going to use this rigger and this fine round to start painting in all the little trees and twigs in the background. Start by mixing my dark. In this case I'm going to want quite a deep blue, so I'm going to take a little bit of Prussian blue, a touch of black, some ultramarine. I don't normally use black, but as I'm working with acrylics here, and they're going to go a bit softer anyway, I think they'll be ideal for this. I've still got some of my marks in from the drawing, so I can just see where I'm going in places. Consistency of paint, as I say, is quite important. We've got to have paint that's not too thick or it won't go on, not too thin, but you can see through it. That's established our little branches. Now again, it's back to texture. But before we do the texture, we need to come into some of the slightly lighter areas of these. Trees. So I'm going to take a little bit of cerulean, a little bit of ultramarine, a wee touch of the pink, the rose. Just find some of the cooler edges of these trees that are coming around here. They're not just black. I want to, while this is drying, I want to paint out lots of this white. So I'll take some burnt sienna and we'll simply get in here and coat this. Burnt sienna and blue I think we'll use on this. It's a nice dark, that's right. We'll get in and coat this whole thing with a coat of this colour just to get rid of the white. And I can use oils for that or whatever, but the thing is to get rid of this distraction of this white canvas. And the same with the pheasants. Let's give them a coat of colour. Nothing too strong, just a thin glaze of yellow ochre and a little sienna just to remove the white at the moment, and we can paint over them later, and you can still see the pencil marks just showing through. Now we're going to go back to our textural work and start using a bit of sponge to start putting back in these leaves up here and so on. I'm going to make up a nice yellow-green. Of course there are various brushes for special effects as well. Here for instance you can see a brush which has a very rough texture at the end. Not one you'd be able to paint a fine line with at all, but these specialist brushes, this one in particular, great for things like these ferns where it's going to give me a fairy effect. Well spread out first, we get a good bashing. You've found this with hakes as well, that new hakes are not much good, but a nice battered old hake is far more useful than a more smart one that just gives a blob of paint. If we make a mistake and put a bit too much of something on, we can go back over with the darks afterwards, there's no problem. Even into the blues. I need to go back to sponges again. So we're still sponging, try a different sponge this time. Put a bit more yellow in. Lots of building up, so it looks like we've done tons and tons of detail. I suppose in a way we have, but not having to paint every individual mark in. Now, a lot more golden gold, so we'll take some yellow ochre again, a bit of white. We've got to start doing seam-to stuff actually on the pathway too. Start building this up with textures for the leaves in the background. Not worrying too much about going over the pheasants there because we're going to come back in detail on those later. You can see how it's gradually drawing out layers of leaves forward into the painting. Go on mixing colour after colour, finding them gradually, putting them in these blue greys and warms, all these different beautiful colours in the background here. And before I finish this evening, let it dry off, I'll just put a little bit more of the light yellows and green on. I just want to show you just how lovely that can look. So I'm going to make a little bit of cream with lemon yellow and add a touch of viridian to it. And let's just see when we do get some of that lighter green on how effective it's going to be. There you see. It's going to look lovely. Just bring a few of those stronger greens, just a little bit into there, because this is the closer sunlight, and what we want to do is get this feeling of receding light. Lighter shapes here. Catch the sunlight coming through. It'll be happening into some of this as well. That's almost enough for tonight because the light's getting very low here and I can hardly see what I'm doing. Well, since we last worked on this, I put in a lot more details for the texturing, and I've repainted some of the brushes on top because they were lost with the texture going over. And I've just started now to put in some of these grasses and textures. This brush is very useful for that because this is one of those special effects brushes which you see breaks up into little fine furry bits. This is great for the moss, and now I'm going to go back to my little filbert and we'll start painting in these leaves. I'm still using the acrylics and I shall paint the pheasants after the leaves, but I'm going to have to go back into this with oils because I want a lot stronger colours, and although the acrylics are lovely, they do not quite ever give the vibrance of the oils. I'll start mixing up the orangey browns for the leaves. Start with some yellow ochre, a little touch of burnt sienna, and use it as a pure colour at first. If the colour's on my brush and I see it somewhere else, for instance in the pheasants, then I'm going to use that colour, because wherever you make a colour and see it, then use it again rather than have to mix it up while you're at it. And I need the underpainting of these pheasant feathers to go on before I think about any oils even. Quite a few of these colours are going to be coming down into the leaves as well, so it's as well to establish this now and find some of these so that I know what I'm going to be using later as well. And that helps us to establish which colour is right one to another. Again, by using an impressionist or slightly pointillist style. And making the textures actually recreate the bird. I'm using mauve at the moment, or purple. As you see, so far I've managed to get away with using actually just the one brush. Surprising what we can get done just with a filbert, which is a lovely brush. This white I want taking down a fraction later, just to again establish the colours at the moment. Right, and back to our leaves. Gradually getting lighter and lighter with my little bits of leaf that are reflecting light, watching carefully as to whether they're warm or cool, browns or purples. You see, we're well on with the painting this morning, and so far I've worked only with acrylics, and I want to brighten up this a bit more later, but I just need to carry on a bit more with the acrylics before I finish. This bird's looking rather flat at the moment, and we've got more ferns and things to do in the distance, and also a few more blues to put in as well. I'm going to use my filbert again. And we'll just start looking at some of these bluer marks around here, so a little bit of cerulean blue, a wee touch of the green just to bring it back a bit, and let's start looking at some of these slightly bluer, cooler turquoise greens in here, which will make the warm greens look even warmer, and that's what we're playing with. Rough against smooth, light against dark, cool against warm, always these things going on and playing one colour against another, which will bring out also these pheasants, because the coolness of these leaves, the green is the opposite to the red, as Constable used in his paintings. You will nearly always notice in Constable's paintings somewhere a little red figure, and the reason for that has always been that he wants to play the opposite in the colour circle, a complementary colour of red against the green, as I do in my beach scenes when I play the purple against the yellow for shadows. So we'll bring this cool all the way down, surprising where it gets to. You don't think it's in the leaves. People tend to, especially amateurs, tend to paint green grass, blue sky, brown soil, but it isn't like that. Little bits of colour going on in these. I've got to find some of them in the rocks and things there as well to do. If you're painting a picture, everything should be of the same way normally. I'm not saying there aren't exceptions to the rules, as there are in almost everything, but if you suddenly start painting something quite differently, it will stand out like a sore thumb. We could finish the whole painting in the acrylics if it came to it, but I think it might be nice just to use some of the strength of the oils coming into this. So let's do that now then, with a very fine brush, especially on the birds. We'll move on to some of the slightly stronger colours with the oils, just to bring it out. So we'll close up our little homemade stay wet palette, put a little bit more water back in just for the moment so that it stays wet, just like that. Then those paints will stay like that for weeks. And we'll change our brushes over as well and bring on the oils. Little terps, white spirit, and a different set of brushes. Actually, we shan't need all that many brushes. I shall only need fairly fine brushes for this job. Right, we'll do some brush work and we'll do some sponging as well. Let's look at these pheasants at first, and we'll just look at one or two of the lighter colours that we want to just paint details over. Little areas here of very light cream that have disappeared. So we'll take a little bit of white, tiny touch of chrome yellow. I'm just going to take that down a tab with some yellow ochre, because this is our final, and I really do want to make this quite a representational piece. So you can really see what I'm doing. Let's zoom in on these birds, and we'll just use this very small brush to tickle in these little half moon shaped feathers. And this paint hopefully is not going to sink like the acrylic has been doing, because it's the oils. It's a stronger pigment altogether. It'll just pick out the bird, you see. Wherever it's lighter as well up here, we'll use a little bit more of it up here as well. Right, now change colour, and we're going to go to cadmium orange, deep one at the moment. We'll just use that pure, and see if we can bring out the lovely golden feathers here a little bit more. With this being a lot more orange, it will make the leaves behind seem less brown and garish and more subtle. Although we might actually need some of this colour in those leaves. I can see that now. I know I'm doing it. I can see quite a few oranges coming in these leaves here which need brightening up from the sunlight. So we'll bring in these oils wherever we need them. Cadmium red now, a bit of red down here, nice bright pheasant, and a little bit more around his eye perhaps as well, right down to a cooler red, slight bit of purple now. Really want to feel for these, and we've got to start looking at the these lovely blues that I did earlier with the acrylics have sunk. So I'm going to bring out those colours again with a bit of oil. So some cobalt, a little bit of cerulean now. And really make that pheasant's head shine. My colours on my brush, some of those blues are coming in down here amongst the oranges. Look at that vibrance of colour we can get. Now those colours are only going to show if they have the dark against them. So let's take some Prussian blue, a very dark blue, and there's little spots of dark that are in the feathers that we need now to make these lights stand out against it. You see the wonderful effect we can get with the oils, which are just that bit brighter than these acrylics. And with a little bit of brown with that, because that dark wants warming up a fraction here. We'll move on down to the one below. I'm still using our small brush. We'll take some of the cadmium orange again. Don't want to overdo it because, say, it would look out of place and it would make the birds look as if they're stuck on. Deep. Some cadmium red now. But these stronger colours I'm hoping will just pull it out. Make the bird almost become three-dimensional. Let's move across to the other pheasant. I don't think he's too far out. We'll put a little bit more cobalt just into the blue there for a start. Gives a bit more gleam. I think that's the pheasants about as far as I want to go with them. Now I need to look at the greens and the textures also in the leaves where I want to be a bit stronger. You can see the richness that we're getting in control now. Let's start looking at the ferns here a bit. I'm going to take some yellow green, some bright green, a little bit of white, and really see how much stronger I can bring up some of these greens. Got to have just the right consistency, so I've got just the amount of terps that I require. And I think you'll be surprised just how bright we can make these, how we can get the highlights going on these now, look. And it'll make things really start to pull together. Little bits of fern and which the acrylics were very nice, but they were sinking a bit too much. And these paints, oils, just give that bit more vibrance. Still working on these various ferns, the yellow greens and so on. I want to start getting sunlight coming through these ferns. On the top left we have these very strong leaves, and now if I put them in with the oils, you see just how much stronger they could actually be than they were, or than they are. Let's really give that some welly. Get these autumn colours going. See how much more vibrant, how much stronger it really is then. And the light sparkling down through these trees. And these stronger greens are pushing the other back, you see. Right, I think it's time now to start looking back at the leaves. Little flat-ended brush for this. And mix up some burnt sienna and some yellow ochre. Because this time with the oils it's going to be a lot stronger. Well, let's just try that pure first of all. You can see the difference in strength already. I'm going to take some of that with a little bit of white, make a much lighter red. And I think I need to go a bit warmer still, so I'm going to take a bit of cadmium red and orange and bring that into it, especially here in the foreground, which will also link, I think, with the pheasant. I'm hoping it will. There we are, look. And it'll bring the pheasant out and forward because the colours will relate to it. I don't think we're that far off completing this painting, because otherwise we could go on forever. Just playing with colours backwards and forwards now to just try and get this right. Not easy. And I reckon that puts us about there. Well, this time we're going to paint this rather nice scene. Rather than a composite of the swans over the marshes at Saltfleet. And you can see I've got a black prime canvas here, and we're going to work directly a la primer with the oil paints straight onto it. See my palette here. I've got a couple of oval brushes, I've got a couple of fill bits and a round and a smaller round as well, just for doing some detail work. We should be able to build up with those brushes at the beginning anyway. So I'll take a big brush to start with, just get it working. Put these brushes to one side for later. And the first thing I want to do is to start to make the background sky here. So I'm going to start with this very light turquoise blue. And for that I'm going to want to start with white. Always mix your light colour first. So if we're going to have a light colour, we mix the white and then a colour into it. Or otherwise, if you do it the other way around, you'll end up with a gallon of colour, and that's not something you want. Just gradually building up. So a little bit of terps, nothing much, just to get it working, get the brush going as well. And then actually I'm going to put a little bit of yellow into that at first, because the sky lower down here is quite turquoise. So a little bit of cream, and then into that a wee touch of the emerald, and then into that a wee touch of my cerulean to give me a very green-blue start to my sky. And a little bit more of the lemon yellow, a bit more white. It's going to be against the white of the swan, so I can't make it too dark, or I won't see the white of the swan later on. That's about right now, I think, for that first colour, which is going to go on just here. So that, in this situation here, is just there. There's the bit of sky coming in here, pink coming through there, so a nice light yellowy greeny turquoise. Plaster it over there. Start to work my way up behind here. Now as I come up behind there, it's going to get darker. In other words, more colour to it, and I say darker. So a bit more blue into that, and a little bit more of the green, just to make it a bit stronger in colour. I still want a very luminous background to my sky here. Coming right up around the swan's neck. I'm going to paint slightly over my lines because when I come back with the swan, I'm going to be cutting into it. Now I'll start to add more cerulean and blending through as we get darker with the blue, smokier. Now a little bit of cobalt blue into that. To go a bit darker up here still, and just feather those in. Okay, I've painted in the lighter blues and the turquoises of the sky. Now it's time to move on to the clouds. And I want to make a slightly purpley grey for that, so I'm going to take a little bit of my purple. Just test it out. Yes, that's a nice purple mix just to have just another colour. Because I'm going to work one colour into another a little bit here. And feathering it in. And feathering is what I'm doing with the brush at the moment. It's just tickling the tip of the brush into the paintwork. And I'm going to need, of course, some of these same colours coming into the water because it's going to be reflecting it, isn't it? Colour grey going along there in a moment. I don't want too much of this dark canvas showing through either. And the soft tones coming right up into the sky here. And these warmer colours being warmer will jump forward slightly anyway. And you can see the effect is just starting to show now. And we've lost most of the black except for where we wanted on the birds at the minute, just to know where things were. More ultramarine blue and burnt umber. To go a lot darker, and by the use of brushwork we should be able to get the very soft effect of these fluffy clouds. You can see how we're doing here. Grey is going along this darker bit. I'll take a slightly smaller brush and start to work in some of the slightly more warmer colours. And we want to start making these pinks and warms. Again, we're going to work from our mid-tones up towards our lightest. So let's make the pink first. And it's a slightly orangey pink. So we'll take white first as usual. A little touch of cadmium orange, don't need much. Doesn't need much to tint these colours at all. And a wee touch of cadmium red. Don't want to make it too red though, I shall add a little bit of mauve into it in just a minute. Right, let's try some of that subtly coming into here, under the wing of the swan. You can see the lovely effect we're going to get, match the light. And the clouds coming in down below. I'll make it a bit stronger in a minute there. Little strokes, gradually building it up. Now we come to the much lighter areas where we just want a touch of the cadmium orange. It's almost white. A wee touch of cream there, I think, as well. It's the smallest touch of chrome into the white rather than the lemon yellow. I'll just add a bit more sunshine to this cloud just there by putting in some of that cream. Go. So that's the sky almost done. Might work a little bit more later on. When we get the dark to the birds, the sky will make more sense. Need to come down to the water next. And we're going to be using similar colours to the ones we used before. So we'll take some of the purple blues that we'll be using. Just start to, that's a very cool blue, that one. That'll be coming in more across here. Look at where the light is just shining across the water. I'll be using that the same sort of colour we had here earlier. Look, a slightly greeny blue, a little touch of the cerulean. So I just tested it there to see if it was as close as I need to the colour I've been using in the sky. There are patches of it right up to these ducks. These darks out at the moment will come back and put in the reeds again. Beautiful, rich, deep purple, which remember the sky isn't the same sky as is on the photograph, so that reflection isn't of this sky. So I've got to do some adjustments, even though I do love that deep purple down there, which I'm going to actually whip in now. Let's really get a lovely deep blue going down here, which is a beautiful colour. So I've used some ultramarine and a little touch of purple to give me that really deep, rich. We'll go even more purple as we come down into it, right down to the bottom of the canvas, just to get rid of this black at the moment and give me a base to paint into. A lot of vertical strokes mixed in with the horizontal in water. Get the reflections, let's get the depth of this water first, and then we'll get the surface reflections later on. Drag the paint backwards and forwards across itself and then back again, and gradually get the feeling of the surface of the water. Warmer colours, a little bit of alizarin crimson now. So what we can do with that coming into this. Start to link in these warmer tones and reflections that are coming through the surface, sort of rippling across. Well, unfortunately the film on the main last part painting the swans disappeared, and the camera needed cleaning. I guess it's the first time it's ever happened. So what I'm about to do now is to paint these birds, and I'm going to try and show parts of that on the face camera, on the glasses camera for you, but I'll just go back into what I did. Now the three swans in the sky were painted by first painting some of the darks in, then the mid-tones, that's all these greys and light blues. Then I worked up the warm colours and finally put on the very light creams and whites. The cream is made of white and a little lemon yellow. The dark again is cobalt. The dark again is Prussian blue and a bit of burnt umber. And in fact I just want to get that a bit darker there again too. A little bit light still, just there, a little bit darker down that bit. That's better. And once we've got the dark tones and the medium tones painted, then I put the light tones in at the very end. Same here, where you can see the dark tones are painted in and the medium tones, and then finally the pinks and the very light parts. Same with this one, where we've painted the dark in, then the medium tones and then the lights at the end. Coming down to these two swans here, where I've already got the darks in, re-established some more of them, put in the mid-tones of the grey blues and the pinks, then re-establish the darks, put in the oranges of the beaks, cadmium orange and a bit of cadmium red. The dark again is Prussian blue and burnt umber, and the pinks are white, a little touch of cadmium red and cadmium orange into the white to make the pink, and then just blended that gradually in, the white and a little tiny piece of lemon yellow, and again a little bit of very light blue at the end to bring out those colours. And that gave us the swans. Finally the three ducks over here, where I just used that one dark colour of the Prussian blue and the burnt umber, and then cutting around them afterwards just to get the shapes back a bit, but we'll tidy all of this up later. Time now to work in the reflections a bit more. We'll come back with the medium brush and mix some of the lighter colours, the pinks, to come down into here. You already have some of them on the palette. So let's just start bringing those into the water just a little. They're reflecting down below here. For the worms as well, just to get the feeling of reflections of clouds above. And the rest we can do by putting these lights and darks later on. The next thing what to come down back onto is these swans here now. Get those finished off. I'll go back to my fine brush again. And let's work on them a little bit. Well, again, we've got some nice cool. Let's start with the beak, the dark Prussian blue. And a little touch of brown, just to give it a touch of warmth. And we'll look at his face. So, right. And at the very tip of the beak, we'll do one in a minute, but let's look at the orange of the beak here now. Let's start with the lighter of the two colours, the slightly more cadmium orange. A little touch of red. Let's see if we've got the right sort of colour there. Yes, not far off. It's a little bit light. So into the beak, round, just to get the feeling of the shape of the beak first of all. Then we'll take some stronger red. Mixing it fairly thinly at the moment. Don't want it too strong. Just coming into that, gradually building it up. Just find the end of his beak here now. There, down the back of the head, all the way down the back of the neck, just fluffing down just a little bit. And then our swan suddenly appears. So we've got one swan done, and you'll need a little bit of light blue as well, I think. Not just the cream, the light blue is also going to give us a certain coolness to the body in places. And we've got light coming down the side of the neck here, so I'm going to have to tidy up in a minute, tidy up this water around it. So we've got these ducks here now, which are across there. Same here, get the body of the bird. The head is low. And this one up here at the back, right to the back of the duck. Reflection of his head coming down there. And then here, a little bit of a beak. So we've got our birds in and the basic sky and the base of the water. Now I just want to make the sky a little bit pinker in places, a bit more pinky purple. So we'll take a bit more of this time, a bit of rose this time, and add it to the white. Look at the lovely colours we start to get. So that we play those warmer pinks against the cooler pinks. That's just what's happening here now. We've just finished adding these slightly more pinker pinks, these rose pinks into the painting, to play against more orangey pinks and make them seem more orange. So you don't add more of one colour necessarily to make something seem stronger. You can add something that's going to complement it or bring it out. We're going to be painting these darks on first and then the lights afterwards on top of that. So the dark, very similar to the bird, is going to be made of Prussian blue and some brown. A little bit of purple into that because up here, and I'm going to use the brush quite delicately just to stipple little bits on to make the feeling of these marshland plants. So using the end of the brush that's slightly broken, we'll carefully paint in these areas, and I'm just going to do a little bit on this and virtually finish it so that you can see what I'll be doing over the whole thing gradually. So just gradually tickling in these reeds. Remember that they're going to reflect as well, so whatever we have here is happening just below them too. So if I put a line or something in here, it has to come in below here as well. Just using the broken bristles of the brush. Gradually get the feeling of this, of these bits of plant. Some of those are slightly darker than the shadow that is cast by the swan. A little bit warmer into that. Take a little bit more purple and just a little alizarin crimson into there now. And then you can come back onto that with the sunlight catching the highlights. For instance, there are little bits of green. You could use a sponge technique for this, but I think my brush is going to be adequate. After that, this lovely golden colour. So I'll take some yellow ochre and some white. Have no orange by any means, but just catch this sunlight. And you can see how I'm going to gradually build up the entire marsh in this way now. Quite time consuming, but it'll be worth it. See, I've built up my golds and yellows. I'm just starting to build up some of the warmer reds and pinks, which will be reflecting that sunlight from the sky onto these marsh plants. A lot more colour in these things very often than you realise until you actually get down to painting them. This slight haziness of warmth glowing through here in the background. I'm moving through to a bit more purple in it, cooling it down a bit. Looking at the deeper colours and mauves reflecting with the sunlight into these birds. And it's by playing these colours, warm against cools, roughs against smooths, light against darks, that we're going to achieve what we're after here. And I'm going to go down to a smallish brush and just tickle in some of the very light highlights of the marsh, weeds, with a quite strong yellow. Little bits of colour and stuff that just hit the water's edge and are important to the water surface. Give us this feeling of transparency. Right, we'll let that dry and have a little think on it. Okay, so we're on the closing stages of this now. Coming down to a small brush again. But it's now time to work on the finer details like the swan. So I've just worked around the bird. Now I just want to bring up these outside tints just a bit more. A little bit more pink just down the back here. So that sunlight comes around. And the feathers fluff out there just a bit under the leg. Down the inside here as well. Got to paint quite finely now. And some of that red is also coming to the foreground. And these bits of weed as well, so while I've got the colour on my brush, we'll just tart those up a little bit, and this will just bring things out a tiny amount. Don't make it stand out too much, but it's needed to be a fraction darker there, as indeed it does, I think, just here a little bit. Now I want to start working on some of these blues in the background and just bring out the water, and the blues and pinks, bring out the water a little bit more again. There's some lovely textures, bits of light shining through in the reeds here, which you've lost a bit because it's going a bit dead. So we'll just get some of this lighter blue and come back in there with this. Get these lovely bits of light reflecting the background there. And we can use the brush to dry brush and drag it over the surface a little bit, just to give these reflections down into here. Through as well, not just one way, through and across, and with these little strokes and dots and dashes we get the feeling of these lights reflecting in the shimmering evening light. So a lot of work building it up, but all very worthwhile, as you can see now, I think, because now all of this effort that I've been putting in is starting to make sense. We're at it now, we've got it on our brush. I want to just lighten up a few of the other little bits. Come through there though. I would say that that painting is about as far as I'm going to take it. Well, I think there we go. So, here we are set up to do a small watercolour this morning. Well, I have a little time to spare this morning, and I took this picture of this cardinal earlier on with the 600mm lens. It's not that sharp. I've lost a bit of the eye detail as well in that print, but I'm going to have a go at it just for fun because we've already done a couple of flower scenes, landscapes and all sorts of other things with figures. So let's have a go at a little bit of wildlife this time, just in watercolour. Use a knot paper today, and the only brush I'm going to need, and the main brush I'm going to need, is just a simple little round. This one's a number 10, and I want to concentrate on these detailed areas and then go looser around it with wet into wet afterwards. Now we've got to start in watercolour with the lightest colours first. So in this case I want to be dropping in very light yellow, I think we're going to be starting with a chrome in this one. Very light chrome. Keep it clean. A little bit of aureolin first, then some chrome, because this paper is very waxy. I'm going to have to work it in a bit. The paint seems to be a bit mucky as well, not very keen on that. It's because it's been tilted in the car, I think. The pencil's coming off into it as well a bit. So, not a very good start. I wanted much cleaner colours, but anyway, here we go. Now I can drop in my chrome. I've got the wet effects to make this much richer yellow. It's a little bit filthy, but clean the colour down here. And quite often, as with Impressionism, if we're doing broken colour, that's one colour next to another. Also in watercolour, sometimes dropping a colour in to another colour can be much brighter than mixing the two and then putting them on. So here I'm going to cover this bird in this chrome. Then I want soft fluffy effects, and we'll show you how to use a fan brush later as well for getting some furry effects, some feathery effects on here. Going down now to cadmium orange, painting it fairly thickly today. So quite quickly, cadmium orange into this now. You see how quickly we can establish a bird like this. I don't think I could paint it quite as fast outdoors. I admire these wildlife artists that do that. Down the bottom edge of that tail there. A little bit more orange here. I really do want to capture the richness of these oranges and yellows into this. Up through here, into his cheek. And right round the breast. Then we're going to play with warm and cool reds a bit. We've got the lighter cadmium reds here and also the rose colours. Let's first lift out a bit where these feathers are here. I want to lift out a little bit because I want it greyer here later. So I'm going to lift out a bit of paint there and across the wing here. I want it bluer in those places. I could have left it before, but you see how easy it is to lift out the paint now? And a little bit here as well, I want it a bit bluer there. We'll lift out a bit of that yellow there. Just by drying the brush, cleaning and drying the brush, and then sucking the paint out of those places. There we are. A little bit more on the back as well, I want it a bit bluer there. Suck the paint out, back to the paper again. That's the way. So it's almost back to the white paper there. So if you make a mistake in watercolour, you can lift it out like that. Right, let's come down now to our brighter red with some light red here. So I want a more orangey red. Not quite that bright, but there we go. To there. Lovely bit of bright red along this wing here. And down the edge of the tail there, that's better, it's cleaner. A little bit of red around here. A bit blue around there as well. It's the pencil marks today that are doing this, making it rather red coming into, so this is an orangey red that I want before I start putting in the slightly cooler reds. Just letting the wet into wet do the job. And I want to keep it nice and clean. All the way around here. Nice bright cardinal red. And letting the wet into wet just softly work down the feathers. giving that fluffy effect. Now I need to lift out again, here on the leg. Don't want any red just there. Put that away. And come in with a cooler red. Let's look at the rose now. Under the belly here. Much cooler, maybe even a little bit of alizarin crimson coming in here. So rose, alizarin crimson, both very cool reds that will give me this lovely dark colour underneath the tail. Try and do this before it dries. Over the back of the wing here. And I'm doing this while it's all wet. And I'll put the details in a bit later because I will want to get further effects into here. So this cooler, rich, slightly more purpley red, this deep red, which will make the other red seem even lighter. Just start to get some of the fluffy effects. A little bit around these edges. Now go darker still, going down to a purple now. Right into here. So much cooler. We're now in between the blues and the reds by doing a purple. Look at these lovely effects we can get with these, playing with these warm and cools together. And that purple, I've got to work on the beak yet, but that purple also wants to come around the moment into here, into his eye. And I'm going to come back to the blue on there. I want these bluey greys. So I'm going to use a cobalt violet and a little bit of cerulean. I'll just tint that with a bit of cobalt violet to bring it down. Same across here. Just down here as well. Quite heavily, fairly opaquely in this case. And we need that deep purple underneath the wing. Yeah. The paint is gradually drying off now, so I'll be able to get hard edges shortly. I'm going to need. You can see that we get the soft effects of the bird first of all. Right, let that dry a little bit. I'm going to come back onto the before that's drying. I'm going to come back onto the beak in a moment. Just want to bring in, feather in this purple just a fraction. Bring it up and around the leg here. There we go. A little bit more feathery just over the top of the leg, just there. Set it down a bit. Get that a bit darker in a moment. Let's just do our basics first. Now back on here, we want the red of the beak. lift that out a bit there. I want it to be a bit pinker here, so I'm going to try and put back in some of that cobalt violet into there. Just lift that away. Let that red come down over the beak here. We'll tidy it up later. I just want to lift away this area and let it dry a bit, so I can put some cobalt back in there in a moment. Needs to be a little bit bigger, that beak. I'm going to find a brush as well. Let him dry. While he's drying, come back to my cobalt violet. Come down here. As you see, the paper has been handled quite a lot and it's tending to resist. But once you get the paint washed in, it'll be alright. All over this branch. Down here the same. Even though I'm going to paint dark over some of this in a moment, I'm going to put it right through and in. Lovely colours, aren't they? It's so nice to go and take your own bird photographs, because it's easy enough to take them out of books of other people's, but it's quite nice to be able to have your own to actually work from. Now, whilst that's wet, let's go in on the bottom edge of that with some burnt sienna. Like that, just letting it go in with the wet into wet effects. Same here. Don't have to be too careful, we'll just let the controlled accident do the work as we do with watercolour. And then below that we'll take a bit of Prussian blue and add that to the burnt sienna and some foam to the branches. Right down to the bird. Same here. All along that lower edge. Little knots and things that are happening on the branch as well. Let's get those effects in. We don't want to be quite in focus on this. I'm going a little bit out of focus. I'll concentrate on the bird a bit more in a minute and bring that back into focus. And just very dark underneath him here. That whole bit. A bit of purple to go in there in a minute as well. Let those dry off and put our effects of our branch. So simply, you see. Now it's timing, isn't it? We need to start painting in some of the sharper edges of the foreground leaves. So I'm going to use my Aureolin yellow again, one of my favourite yellows. And start just to paint in. Got to get this working. Right, a thin wash. Just to get this foreground. This resisting of the paper, because it's so old and it's been handled a lot, is going to be a bit of a nuisance in a way, because it's also going to be difficult when I come to do the washes for the background, where I want to be very, very loose, and I shall have a job being loose if I've got to go over it again and again like this. A bit of a nuisance. Take some of that away. Just indicate these lighter areas around here. I'll come in with some other greens in a minute. So Aureolin yellow is a lovely lemon yellow, but it's much cool. It's a very cool yellow and much more transparent than the lemon yellow. And I do like a couple of leaves that are further across in the design. I think I'll bring them into here because I quite like those, and I think I'll have them in my design anyway over here. Right, how dry is the bird now? I think hopefully I can come back and take a bit of that cobalt violet and come into the beak here now. Lift out again. It's quite light there. right down to the tip of the beak. And there. Let that dry off again. Now back onto these leaves. Cerulean blue. And let's start to try and get some of the effects of the slightly bluer, lovely bluer greens. Now these flowers, which have a sort of grey tint, and again it's very hard to get things going in them because of this resistance. I'm going to make a little bit of blue and purple and brown to give a sort of slightly grey effect, and just blodge it in on the petals here, which I'm hoping to leave behind. So we'll let that dry for a moment. Okay, so this is the stage we've got to. Here's our original, here's what we're working on. And it's still not dry, so I'm still having to wait a little bit, but whilst I'm waiting there are areas that are dry enough to do. And one of those is this dark area on the bib. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to go for a purple and a bit of Prussian to make a very deep, warm blue. Don't want it to spread, so I have to be careful it is in fact dry. Come into there, just around that beak ever so carefully. I'm going to go over it again in a minute, but I just want to get this first dark in the right place. Right down to there. And it's going to come just around the beak here and into the face. And we let that dry off to come back and touch it up in a moment. In the same way we can take that deep purple and the blue, and now it's just dry enough here, we can come down to here and darken in under the wingtip. And just down into here, and even a little bit more where it's required under the detail yet to come. Need to be a lot drier before I do all the detail. A bit darker there. And we'll bring in some indication of feathers there. Now we can start to think about some of the background colours, because we're going to paint a grey, blue-grey area in here and then a warmer wash at the back. So I'm going to change from my round to a mop, because I'm doing slightly larger areas, and mix up a fairly warm green. In this case I'm going to use a bit of yellow ochre and a bit of sap green, and that should give me a nice warm green to go in there. Fairly opaque. We'll just blend that out into that to give a vignette effect. Now back to my cools, some cerulean to drop in around here. Plenty of it. Right in round the bird, just to give the effect of an out of focus background coming out. Take some of the cobalt violet, drop a little bit of that in between here. A blurry background. Into that, a little bit of cobalt blue, which will show against the warmth of the bird. Green behind the red should look good. A bit of sap green going in here. Gradually building up these colours, stronger and stronger, darks and lights, one against another, and then we can make some darker colours to take the ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, just hold to pile a bit of those deeper colours in. Let those wet into effect, and we let those wet into wet effects dry off a bit now. Just suck out a little bit of light here. Now it's time to start working some of the details. It's still very wet around here, so I can't do much there, but I can work on some of these darks. So I want some very deep. I'm going to take some Prussian and burnt sienna again, a little touch of purple because it's just always in that bird, and see if I can just tidy up this bit of the beak, make it a bit darker, in and around a bit more and down. Now while we're on textures, take a little bit of light red on this fan brush and just see if we can get a bit of the texturing of the feathers with that. And then come in finally and readjust it. With the cools here and there, just finish off. And we're almost there with that picture. And I would say that picture is not far off being completed really. So there we go then, a quick study of the cardinal.